Chosen one, the person who quits acting is the most dangerous person in any room. That person is now you, so let it sink in. And you know what? They are aware. Oh, they've learned at last. They are aware that you are not perplexed. Behind that poker face, they know you've been observing with X-ray eyes. They are aware that you recorded every sidelong glance, phony embrace, and silence that was louder than rumors. Not because you said anything, but because you were able to at last. They are now whirling. Here's the truth. In terms of psychology, guilt consumes the brain more quickly than terror. You've constructed a palace and put in a surround sound system, so you're not simply living rent-free in their heads at the moment. The hysteria is overwhelming. In rooms you haven't been in, they are perspiring. They are practicing excuses they will never use. They are leaping at shadows that appear to be the truth. In fact, it's hilarious. While they're unraveling like a bad wig in a wind tunnel, you've been moving in silence. What's the best part? It was not necessary for you to reveal them. The exposure is your consciousness. Every lie they told, every manipulation they tried, every time they played victim while victimizing you, it's all there, archived in your awareness. And they can now, you know. Before we go deeper into this word, thank you to every single soul who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you sow or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your time, your heart. It all matters. If you've ever walked into a room and watched them flinch, not because you were aggressive, but because you saw too much, this word is for you. Stay locked in, beautiful soul. You are not crazy. You are not bitter. You are not broken. You are chosen. And your calm, it's about to become their storm, because what they thought was your ending was actually your awakening. And honey, the awakening has eyes. Let's dive in. You know what they told you, don't you? That you were too sensitive, too emotional, too much of everything they couldn't handle. They painted you as the problem child, the difficult one, the one who overreacted to their carefully orchestrated chaos. But tonight, we're flipping that script, because what they called your weakness was actually your weapon. It wasn't your anointing that scared them. It was your awareness. See, you remember things, don't you? You remember the conversation that happened 3 months ago when they said one thing, but now they're swearing they said another. You remember the look in their eyes when they thought you weren't watching. You remember the energy in the room when they whispered your name like a curse word. You remember because God gave you the gift of spiritual photography. Your soul captures what your eyes see. And honey, the negatives never fade. They prayed you'd forget. They hoped time would blur the edges of truth. They counted on your kindness to erase their cruelty. But instead of amnesia, you came back with receipts. Not paper receipts, beloved. Spiritual receipts, energy receipts, the kind that can't be shredded or deleted or gaslit away. Because when you're chosen, your memory becomes a holy archive. Every betrayal gets filed. Every manipulation gets cataloged. Every lie gets time-stamped in the court of heaven. And they feel it. Oh, they feel it. That's why they can't look you in the eyes anymore. That's why their voice changes when they say your name. That's why they stutter when you walk into rooms they thought they owned. Because your presence has become their judgment day. And they know God helped them. They know that you see everything now. Remember Joseph? Thrown in a pit by his own brothers. Sold into slavery by blood relatives who smiled at breakfast. But God gave Joseph something his betrayers never counted on: the gift of remembering with revelation. When those same brothers stood before him years later, desperate and hungry, Joseph didn't need to explain what they'd done. His eyes said it all. I know who you are. I know what you did. And I know why you're here. That's you right now. Chosen one. You ain't losing sleep over their blessings. They losing sleep because you remember where the bodies are buried spiritually. Every toxic seed they planted in your garden, every poison they poured in your well, every time they played innocent while orchestrating your downfall. It's all there, preserved in divine memory, and they can feel it radiating from your spirit like heat from a furnace. They thought your silence meant you were done, but your silence was just the sound of you downloading everything, computing their patterns, connecting their dots, building the case that heaven itself was preparing. Because here's what they never understood. You weren't just surviving their abuse. You were studying it. Not by choice, by divine design. God was turning their weapons into your wisdom. Every manipulation technique they used became your manual for recognizing future predators. Every lie they told became your training in discerning truth. Every betrayal became your PhD in spiritual warfare. You graduated from their school of hard knocks with honors they'll never comprehend. And now they're panicking. Because you're not holding a grudge, you're holding revelation. And revelation, baby, revelation always demands collapse. See, a grudge is personal, a grudge is emotional, a grudge burns the one who holds it. But revelation is divine intelligence. It's heaven's spotlight shining on earth's deceptions. It's the truth of God exposing the lies of man. And when you carry revelation about someone's character, their house of cards doesn't just fall, it gets struck by lightning. They thought they could rewrite history, edit their wrongs, gaslight you into doubting your own experience. But your memory wasn't just psychological, it was prophetic. God gave you the ability to see patterns because He knew you'd need to break cycles. He gave you the gift of remembering because someone has to bear witness to the truth. You are the living testimony of their deception. You are the walking evidence of their manipulation. You are the breathing proof that what they did in darkness did not stay hidden. And that's what's destroying them inside. Not your anger, they could handle that. Not your tears, they fed off those. Not even your prayers for justice, they mocked those too. What's destroying them is your clarity. You're unshakable. You're calm, quiet, absolutely certain awareness of who they really are beneath the masks. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were never confused about your truth. You stopped defending your reality to folks who attacked it deliberately. You stopped trying to convince them of what they already knew, they just hoped you'd never realize you knew it too. But you did realize. And now they're living in the aftermath of your awakening. Every time they see you now, they're reminded of what they tried to bury. Every time they hear your name, they're confronted with their own reflection. Every time they feel your energy in a room, their spirit knows it's being scanned by someone who has access to their spiritual criminal record. This ain't about revenge, beloved. This is about recognition. You're not trying to destroy them, you're simply existing in truth. And truth has a funny way of making lies feel uncomfortable in their own skin. Drop your mask if you're done pretending you didn't know. This is your confirmation moment. You remember every detail, every pattern, every calculated move they made against your peace. And that's not a burden, that's your badge of honor. Because only the chosen ones get trusted with this level of spiritual intel. You remember because God needs witnesses. You remember because heaven requires testimony. You remember because someone has to hold the line between truth and deception, between light and darkness, between what really happened and what they wish you'd believe happened. And that someone is you. That's what made you dangerous to their system. Not your gifts, they could handle those. Not your talents, they'd steal those. Not even your anointing, they'd try to hijack that too. What made you dangerous was your memory, your ability to connect dots, your refusal to let time erase the truth, your divine capacity to remember not just what they did, but who they revealed themselves to be when they thought nobody was watching. And now they know. Somebody was always watching. You were, God was, and the universe keeps perfect records. That's why they're unraveling now, because your memory has become their mirror. And mirrors, honey, mirrors don't lie. The question is, are you ready to stop apologizing for remembering? Are you ready to stop feeling guilty for having spiritual 2020th's vision? Are you ready to embrace the truth that your awareness was always your assignment? Because the next level of your calling requires you to stand firm in what you know, not arrogantly, not vengefully, but truthfully, powerfully, prophetically. Your memory isn't your burden, chosen one. It's your breakthrough waiting to happen. You know what they did to you, don't you? They took your sacred spaces, your mind, your heart, your very sense of reality, and they made it their playground. They fed you confusion like it was communion, passed you lies wrapped in love, served you manipulation on a silver platter and called it care. But something shifted, didn't it? You stopped swallowing their poison. You spit it out and come back with clarity so sharp it cuts through their illusions like a sword through silk. And now? Now they can't stand to be in the same room as the truth you carry. See, they thought they were breaking you down, but the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he was breaking you open. Like Joseph in that pit, like David running from Saul, like Job sitting in ashes, you thought you were being destroyed, but you were being refined, purified, prepared. And when you emerged from that fire, you didn't come back as the same person they tried to bury. You came back as the mirror they couldn't escape. Listen to me, chosen one. They fed you confusion because clarity was their enemy. They needed you disoriented, second-guessing yourself, questioning your own perception. Because a clear-minded you, that was their nightmare. That was the end of their control. But here's what they didn't count on: confusion ain't your natural state. The truth is, light is. Discernment flows through your spiritual DNA like ancient rivers. You can't stay lost when you're made of divine navigation. So when the fog finally lifted, When the mind game stopped working, when you finally saw the pattern, honey, that wasn't just healing. That was a revelation. That was the Spirit of Truth doing what he does best, exposing what's been hiding in darkness. And now they ain't running from you anymore. They're running from the mirror your presence became. Every time they see you calm, centered, clear, they see their own deception reflected back. Your peace reminds them of their chaos. Your stillness exposes their storms. Your clarity makes their confusion look like what it always was. Manufactured madness designed to keep you small. They don't regret what they did to you. Oh no, baby. They regret that you healed from it. Because your healing is their judgment. Your wholeness is their conviction. Your clarity is the courtroom where their lies come to die. Think about it. When you were broken, confused, reactive, they felt safe. They could point to your pain and say, "See, look how unstable they are." Your wounds were their weapons. Your confusion was their comfort zone. But when you got still, when you got clear, when you stopped explaining yourself to people who were never confused about who you are, that's when they started sweating. Because now they can't use your reactions against you. They can't twist your words when you're not speaking. They can't manipulate your emotions when you've learned to guard your energy like it's Fort Knox. Your clarity became their collapse. Your discernment became their destruction. Not because you're trying to hurt them, but because the truth doesn't need to try. It just is, and they feel it every time you walk in the room. Remember when Jesus looked at the Pharisees and didn't say a word, just looked, and they couldn't handle it, started plotting, planning, panicking, because when light shows up, darkness doesn't get to stay comfortable. That's you now. That's your energy. That's your presence. You've become the living, breathing reminder of every lie they told, every boundary they crossed, every time they chose deception over love. And they can't gaslight a mirror. They can't manipulate a reflection. They can't confuse someone who's already seen through the illusion. Your stillness has become their storm. Your peace has become their panic. Your silence speaks louder than any sermon ever could. They thought your quiet meant defeat. They didn't realize quiet was your preparation for victory. See, there's a difference between being silenced and choosing silence, between being broken and being broken open, between being defeated and being refined. They thought they were witnessing your destruction. They were actually watching your resurrection. And now that you've risen, not bitter, not broken, but clear as crystal, and twice as strong, they don't know what to do with you. They can't argue with your peace. They can't debate your discernment. They can't fight your clarity because clarity doesn't fight back. It just reflects. And what they see in that reflection is terrifying them. They see their own emptiness, their own deception, their own spiritual poverty. And they realize that while they were busy trying to dim your light, you were busy polishing it. Your clarity is louder than their chaos. Your stillness, a sermon they can't turn off. You don't have to say a word. Your energy is doing all the talking. Your presence is writing checks your silence can cash. And they're bankrupt of explanations for why they can't handle being around the truth you carry. This is what Isaiah meant when he said, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." This is what David felt when he said, "The Lord prepares a table before you in the presence of your enemies." This is what Jesus demonstrated when he stood before Pilate and the silence shook the foundation of the empire. Your clarity isn't just personal healing, baby. It's prophetic power. It's divine judgment wrapped in mercy. It's the universe's way of saying, enough. So when they flinch in your presence, when they can't meet your eyes, when they start acting strange around your peace, don't think you're doing something wrong. You're doing something right. You're walking in divine truth. You're carrying holy discernment. You're reflecting light so pure it burns through pretense like fire through paper. If your peace ever made someone twitch, if your silence ever made someone nervous, if your clarity ever made someone uncomfortable, type this in your soul: I see through them now. Because the mirror isn't just a cracking, chosen one. It's about to shatter completely. And when it does, the only thing left standing will be the truth. And you are the truth they can no longer deny. You know what's wild about betrayal? It ain't the knife going in that breaks you. It's the smile on their face while they twist it. It's the way they sleep peacefully while you're up at 3 a.m. wondering what you did wrong. It's the way they move through life like nothing happened while you're trying to piece together your sanity from the fragments they left behind. But here's what they didn't count on, beautiful soul. They didn't count on you surviving long enough to see the whole pattern. They thought the pain would keep you blind. They thought the confusion would keep you quiet. They thought the isolation would keep you small. They were wrong. See, while you were bleeding in silence, something else was happening. Something they couldn't see, couldn't touch, couldn't manipulate. Your spirit was recording. Not just the words, the energy. Not just the actions, the intentions. Every fake smile, every calculated move, every moment they thought you were too broken to notice. You were building an archive of truth. And now they can feel it. That shift in the atmosphere when you walk into a room, that uneasiness that crawls up their spine when your eyes meet theirs, that panic frequency that starts buzzing in their chest because they know you remember everything. You didn't speak, but your energy screamed, "I know what you did. Listen to me, chosen one." There's a reason David wrote, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." It wasn't about the food. It was about composure. It was about sitting calm while chaos swirls around you. It was about your peace becoming their pressure. That's where you are now, at the table, unbothered. While they're in the corner rehearsing apologies they'll never have the courage to say. Have you ever noticed how they avoid your energy now? How do they take the long way around just to not cross your path? How do they get nervous when someone mentions your name? That ain't guilt, baby. That's recognition. They're finally seeing what they tried to destroy and realizing it was never yours to begin with. It was divine. Your silence became a sermon they can't escape. Your stillness became a mirror they can't avoid. And honey, they don't like what they see reflecting back. Because you stopped explaining, you stopped defending, you stopped trying to make sense to people who were never confused about your worth. They just couldn't afford to acknowledge it. The prophet Elijah knew this frequency. When Jezebel came for him, he didn't argue, he didn't negotiate. He went silent, let God speak through the stillness. And when he emerged, the whole kingdom shifted. That's your story too. They never thought you'd survive long enough to see the whole pattern. They thought the heartbreak would kill your discernment. They thought the betrayal would blind your perception. They thought the isolation would steal your knowing. But you weren't just surviving, were you? You were studying, learning, watching, connecting dots they thought were scattered too far apart. And now their spirit is glitching like bad software, freezing up when they see you, crashing when your name comes up, buffering when they try to justify what they did, while you're unbothered, operating on a frequency they can't jam, moving with a peace they can't disturb, glowing with a light they can't dim, because you finally understand what Job understood after the storm. I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eyes see you. The betrayal wasn't your destruction, it was your revelation. The pain wasn't your punishment, it was your promotion. You weren't broken down, you were broken open. Let me tell you something that's going to make your spirit jump. Every time they see you now, their body remembers what their mind is trying to forget. That's why they can't look you in the eye. That's why their voice changes when you're around. That's why they start acting different, speaking different, breathing different. Your presence has become their confession. You know what Psalm 23 really means when it says, "My cup runs over"? It means your blessing becomes so obvious, so undeniable, that even your enemies have to witness it. They have to watch you flourish in the same soil where they planted pain. That's what's happening right now. The panic they feel when you enter the room, that's not fear of what you might say. That's the sound of karma unlocking the door. That's the frequency of justice tuning up. That's the vibration of divine order, realigning everything they tried to throw off balance. And you don't even have to do anything. You just have to be. Be present, be peaceful, be powerful in your knowing. Because chosen ones don't need revenge. We just need revelation. And revelation always carries its own consequences. Watch how they scramble now. Watch how they try to rewrite history. Watch how they suddenly develop selective memory about what really happened. But you know what they can't rewrite? Energy. You know what they can't edit? Spiritual records. The universe keeps receipts and frequencies they can't delete. Joseph understood this. Sold by his own brothers, forgotten in prison, left to die in the dark. But when Pharaoh's dream needed interpreting, who did they call? The same one they threw away. That's your story echoing through time. Your breakthrough isn't coming in spite of the betrayal, it's coming because of it. Every lie they told about you is becoming the platform for your truth. Every door they closed is forcing you toward the one they can't touch. If you've felt that tension when you enter a room, the uneasiness, the fake smiles, the way conversation stops and starts, you're not imagining it. You're experiencing it. You're the walking consequence they can't escape. Your healing has become their haunting. Your peace has become their panic. Your silence has become their loudest reminder. And baby, this is just the beginning. Because when God vindicates the chosen, it's not quiet. It's not subtle. It's so obvious that even the blind have to see it. They thought they buried you. They didn't know they planted you. The panic frequency is just the sound of your resurrection tuning up. And honey, when that song starts playing, the whole world's gonna have to dance to your rhythm. Can you feel it rising? Can you feel that shift in the spiritual atmosphere? That's not anxiety, that's anticipation. That's the sound of destiny clearing its throat. Your time ain't coming. Your time is here. And they're about to find out what happens when you mess with someone the universe refuses to let fall. The rehearsal is over. The performance is about to begin. And you're not just the star, you're the director, the producer, and the finale, all wrapped in divine purpose. Let them panic. You've got peace, and peace always wins. You know what nobody talks about? How they turned your heart into a laboratory. How they suited up in fake love and came at you with clipboards, measuring your pain threshold like scientists in white coats. They didn't love you, baby. They studied you. Every tear was data. Every breakdown was research. Every moment you trusted them with your wounds, they were taking notes. Mental notes, emotional notes, calculating exactly how much pressure it would take to make you crack completely. And you felt it, didn't you? That cold observation behind their warm hugs. That clinical detachment wrapped in, "I care about you." Something in your spirit kept whispering, "This ain't love. This feels like experimentation." But you silenced that voice. You called it paranoia. You called it trauma talking. You called it everything except what it was: divine discernment, trying to save your soul from becoming their science project. They mapped your triggers like they were studying for a PhD in your destruction. They pushed button after button, watching you react, taking mental screenshots of your emotional responses. Oh, this makes her cry. This makes him angry. This makes them shut down completely. And when they found your breaking points, they didn't back away in love. They leaned in with curiosity. They tested you like you were some kind of spiritual lab rat, isolated you to see how long you could survive without validation, withheld affection to measure your desperation levels, fed you just enough hope to keep you invested, then snatched it away to document your recovery time. Remember when Joseph's brothers threw him in that pit? They thought they were getting rid of a dreamer. They had no idea they were launching a prime minister. See, what they meant for evil, God was already flipping for good. That pit wasn't your ending, it was your promotion waiting to happen. But here's where their whole experiment went sideways. Here's where their scientific method got shattered by something they couldn't measure or manipulate or control. They made one fatal assumption, one arrogant miscalculation that's about to cost them everything. They thought you were static. They thought you were a fixed variable in their twisted equation. They thought they could predict your responses forever, control your reactions indefinitely, keep you trapped in the same emotional patterns they'd been studying for months, years, decades. But chosen ones don't stay the same. We don't remain predictable. We don't live by their formulas. You weren't breaking down. You were breaking through. You weren't falling apart. You were falling into alignment. Every test they ran on you was actually training you. Every pressure they applied was actually preparing you. Every manipulation they tried was accidentally making you immune to manipulation. You didn't snap like they expected. You evolved, right there in their laboratory, right under their microscope. While they were busy taking notes on your pain, the Most High was taking notes on their methods and building resistance in your spirit they never saw coming. David knew this feeling, surrounded by Saul's jealousy, dodging spears in the very palace where he was supposed to be safe. But every javelin thrown at his head was actually strengthening his reflexes. Every threat was training him for kingship. The hunter became the hunted, and the hunted became the anointed. Now look at you, standing in the wreckage of their failed experiment. Their test tubes are shattered, their data is corrupted. Their hypothesis has been destroyed by the very subject they thought they controlled. Because you can't study fire without getting burned. You can't experiment on light without exposing darkness. You can't psychologically manipulate someone chosen by the universe without triggering cosmic consequences. They thought they were creating a puppet, but every string they tried to attach, you quietly cut. Every script they tried to give you, you rewrote. Every box they tried to put you in, you outgrew. They didn't create a puppet, they awakened a prophet. And now they're terrified of their own creation, not because you're angry anger they could handle, not because you're broken they could fix, but because you're awake, because you're aware, because you see the lab for what it was, the experiment for what it was, and them for who they really are. Your silence isn't submission anymore. It's a strategy. Your peace isn't passivity. It's preparation. Your stillness isn't a weakness. It's wisdom that comes from watching predators hunt and learning all their patterns. You know their methods now. You've memorized their playbook. You can spot their techniques from miles away. And that knowledge, that awareness, that's the one thing they can never take back. That's the one result of their experiment they can never erase. Elijah knew this power, standing before 450 false prophets, watching them dance and scream and cut themselves, trying to manufacture what flows naturally through the chosen. And when it was his turn, one prayer, one moment, fire from heaven, game over. Your breakthrough wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't the explosion they were waiting to document. It was quiet, it was internal. It was the kind of transformation that happens when someone stops being a test subject and starts being a testimony. The lab is closed now, the experiment is over, and the results? The results are you standing in power they never intended to create, carrying wisdom they never meant to impart, walking in authority they accidentally activated. If you've ever felt like somebody was testing you instead of loving you, this is your message. This is your confirmation. This is your vindication wrapped in victory. You passed, the experiment failed, and the scientist? The scientist is about to discover what happens when you try to play God with someone God has already chosen. Your metamorphosis isn't complete yet, but it's started. And once transformation begins in a chosen one's life, it doesn't stop. It doesn't reverse. It doesn't go backward. It only ascends. And honey, you're just getting started. You know what they never counted on? That your memory would become their judgment. They thought they could gaslight you into amnesia, manipulate you into forgetting, silence you into spiritual blindness. But baby, what they didn't know is that your soul was recording every lie, every betrayal, every moment they smiled in your face while sharpening knives behind your back. You've been carrying their secrets like stones in your chest, haven't you? Feeling crazy because you remember what they swore never happened. Questioning your own sanity because their version of events sounds so much cleaner than the truth you lived through. They made you feel like you were losing your mind when you were actually finding your power. See, they thought they could outtalk your truth, flood the airwaves with their narrative, paint you as the villain, the unstable one, the one who misunderstood their intentions. They built entire campaigns around your silence, thinking if they talked long enough, loud enough, convincing enough, they could erase what really went down. But here's what they forgot about the chosen ones. We don't just survive, we archive. Every conversation that made your spirit recoil, every manipulation is disguised as love. Every time they played victim after victimizing you, you weren't just enduring it, you were documenting it. Spiritually, emotionally, energetically, your soul was building a library of evidence they thought would never see daylight. Remember Joseph in that pit? His brothers thought they buried the dreamer. But they didn't bury Joseph, they planted him. And every year he spent in that palace, rising to power, he was walking proof of what they tried to destroy. Do you feel that? That's your Joseph season awakening. They celebrated your silence like it was their victory, toasted to your absence like they'd finally won. But what they were really celebrating was giving you time to see the whole picture, time to connect the dots, time to understand the systematic nature of what they'd been doing. Your quiet wasn't weakness, it was witness preparation. And now that archive is opening, not because you're seeking revenge, but because truth has its own timeline, its own agenda. And baby, that agenda don't need your permission to execute. You ever notice how they get nervous when you're around now? How their jokes don't land the same way, how their stories start shifting when you walk in the room. That's because they can feel it. They can sense that the silent observer has become the walking evidence. You don't even have to say a word. Your presence is prosecution. The way you carry yourself, now calm, centered, unshakable, it's not just healing, it's a revelation in motion. Every step you take in your truth is another nail in the coffin of their lies. Every breath you take in your power is another crack in their foundation. They thought they were dealing with someone who would stay broken, someone who would internalize their projections and carry their shame forever. But what they awakened was an archivist of the spirit, a keeper of receipts that can't be deleted, altered, or explained away. David knew this feeling, anointed in secret, hunted in public, but walking with the knowledge that every cave he hid in was preparing him for the palace. Every psalm he wrote in the darkness was evidence that God's chosen don't just endure, they document the faithfulness that carries them through. And now the tables are turning, not through your effort, but through your existence. You didn't have to build a case, you became one. You didn't have to prove anything, your survival is the proof. Your peace is the evidence. Your growth is the testimony they can't cross-examine. The system they built to break you, it's crumbling under the weight of its own contradictions. The lies they told to discredit you, they're eating those words like poison. The narrative they crafted to make you the villain, it's unraveling because the star witness your life tells a different story. You see it happening, don't you? The way their confidence is cracking, the way their stories don't add up anymore, the way people are starting to ask questions they used to accept without thinking. That's not a coincidence. That divine timing meeting documented the truth. They thought they could bury the evidence by burying you, But chosen ones don't stay buried, we rise with receipts. Your memory isn't your burden anymore, it's your breakthrough. Every painful detail you carry isn't weighing you down, it's building you up. Because memory in the hands of the redeemed becomes testimony, and testimony in the mouth of the chosen becomes prophecy. You are the walking, breathing, glowing proof that their system failed. You are the archive they can't delete, the witness they can't silence, the evidence they can't explain away. And honey, you don't even have to speak for your presence to preach. Your existence is their judgment. Your healing is their exposure. Your rising is their reckoning. So if you've been quiet all these years, storing every detail, remembering every moment they told you to forget, if the truth won't let you sleep because your soul is done playing dumb, this is your confirmation. You weren't collecting trauma, you were gathering evidence. You weren't just surviving, you were documenting the whole corrupt system. And now that archive is about to become their unraveling. The great unraveling has begun. And baby, you're not just watching it happen, you're the reason it's happening. Your truth is their earthquake. Your memory is their judgment day. And the beautiful thing? You won't even have to throw the first stone. Your testimony will speak for itself. The archive is opening. The evidence is rising. And the ones who thought they buried you, they're about to discover that chosen ones don't decompose. We become documents of divine justice. Keep watching, keep rising, keep glowing. Because the greatest revenge isn't getting even, it's becoming undeniable. Listen, there's a truth cutting through the noise tonight that's gonna hit some of y'all right in the chest. You ready for this? Because what I'm about to say is gonna make some things click that you've been trying to figure out for years. They didn't love you. They fed off you. Pause right there. Let that settle in your spirit. Because I know some of y'all been carrying guilt, wondering what you did wrong, asking God why people keep leaving, why relationships keep crashing, why you always end up feeling drained and empty after giving your whole heart. Baby, you weren't their friend. You were their power source. And now the plug is gone. See, there's a difference between being loved and being consumed. Love fills you up. Love waters your soul. Love sees you when you're broken and holds space for your healing. But consumption takes. It drains. It shows up with a spiritual straw, ready to suck every ounce of light, peace, and purpose right out of your atmosphere. You've been wondering why you feel so exhausted after spending time with certain people. Why does your energy drop? Why does your peace get disrupted? Why does your joy start leaking like a tire with a slow puncture? That ain't love, beloved. That's extraction. Remember how Elijah felt after Mount Carmel? Powerful one moment, depleted the next. Because when you carry divine frequency, everybody wants a taste. But not everybody deserves access. And here's what's happening now. They're starving. You walked away. You set boundaries. You stopped being available for their spiritual snacking. And suddenly, their whole world started glitching. Because the source they've been feeding off for years just went dark. The new supply ain't hitting the same, is it? Watch them. Watch how they move now. Notice the desperation in their energy when they see you thriving without them. Notice how they keep checking your social media, trying to find cracks in your peace. Notice how they suddenly want to catch up right when your light starts shining brighter. That ain't love calling. That's hunger. But baby, you weren't cruel when you disconnected. You were covered. Detachment is divine when your soul is under siege. When parasites disguised as people start feeding on your essence, God Himself will move you into spiritual isolation. Not to punish you, but to preserve you. You know why David spent all that time in caves? Because sometimes God has to hide His chosen ones from the very people trying to consume them. Some of y'all have been feeling guilty about going silent, been questioning if you're being too harsh, too cold, too unforgiving. Let me free you from that lie right now. You didn't become heartless. You became discerning. You didn't lose your love. You learned to protect it. Because here's what they never tell you about energy vampires. They don't just take your peace. They take your purpose. They don't just drain your joy. They delay your destiny. Every moment you spend refilling their empty vessels is a moment stolen from your divine assignment. And the enemy knows this. He knows if he can keep you pouring into broken cisterns, you'll never have enough left for the works God called you to do. But something shifted, didn't it? Something in your spirit said enough. Something divine rose up and said, not today, not anymore, not ever again. That wasn't you being mean. That was your soul remembering its value. Now watch what happens next. Watch how they scramble. Watch how their peace starts unraveling without your energy to stabilize them. Watch how their problems multiply when they can't dump them in your lap anymore. Watch how their fake confidence crumbles when they can't use your light to hide their darkness. If someone's life fell apart the moment you walked away, this is your confirmation. It was never love. It was an extraction. They thought you were their gas station, their ATM, their emotional dumping ground. They thought they could keep withdrawing without ever making a deposit. They thought your kindness was weakness, your availability was addiction. But God said, "Not my child." See, when you're chosen, your energy isn't just energy, it's currency, it's medicine, it's spiritual electricity. And just like you wouldn't leave your house unlocked for strangers to come raid your refrigerator, you can't leave your spirit unguarded for demons dressed like friends to come feast on your frequency. The moment you started protecting your peace, their chaos got exposed. The moment you stopped absorbing their drama, their dysfunction had nowhere to hide. The moment you withdrew your light, their shadows started screaming. And now they panic, because they built their whole emotional ecosystem around your availability. They constructed their peace on your willingness to sacrifice yours. They counted on you being too kind, too understanding, too spiritually mature to ever set boundaries. But maturity isn't martyrdom, wisdom isn't weakness. And love, real love doesn't leave you empty. You ain't responsible for being everybody's therapist, everybody's savior, everybody's source. You are responsible for stewarding the gift God gave you with wisdom. And wisdom says, protect what's precious. So when they come crawling back with tears and apologies and promises to change, remember this: a vampire will promise anything for another taste of blood. But nature ain't changed. Only the hunger got desperate. Your disconnection is their spiritual mirror. Your absence is their awakening call. Your silence is preaching sermons their spirit can't ignore. They're not mourning your presence, they're mourning their supply. But you're not missing anymore. You're glowing, you're growing, you're discovering what it feels like to have your own energy back, to wake up with peace instead of anxiety, to move through your day without feeling like you're carrying invisible weights. This is what protection feels like. This is what divine love looks like when it decides enough is enough. So let them starve. Let them learn to feed themselves. Let them discover that the emptiness they feel ain't your responsibility to fill. Because, baby, you weren't born to be consumed. You were born to shine. And sometimes, shining means disconnecting from everything trying to dim your light. The plug is pulled, the access is revoked, and your spirit is finally free to operate at full capacity. Now that's what I call divine disconnection. And honey, it's only the beginning of what God's about to do through a vessel that's finally learned to say no to the wrong spirits. Listen, beautiful soul, I need you to see something tonight. Something about the game they thought they were playing with your heart. You remember those years, don't you? When they moved you around like you were nothing more than a chess piece on their board. When they treated your kindness like weakness. When they mistook your surrender for stupidity. Oh, but they had no idea what they were really dealing with. See, while they were playing checkers with your emotions, thinking they could outmaneuver your spirit, the universe was playing chess. And baby, you weren't the pawn they thought you were. You were the queen they never saw coming. They thought they had you cornered, thought they could push you into submission, make you small, make you quiet, make you disappear into the background of their grand performance. But what they didn't understand, what they still don't understand, is that sometimes the most powerful move in the game is the one that looks like giving up. You played surrender. But surrender ain't weakness, it's strategy. While they were celebrating what they thought was your defeat, heaven was orchestrating something they couldn't see. Every tear you cried in secret became a seed. Every betrayal you endured in silence became preparation. Every moment they thought they broke you, the universe was actually breaking you open, cracking you wide so the light could pour in and the power could pour out. You see, chosen one, they were so busy watching your pain that they missed your transformation. They were so focused on your stumbling that they didn't notice your strengthening. They thought your quietness meant you were out of moves. They didn't realize you were the move. Remember Joseph, sold by his own brothers, thrown in a pit, forgotten in a prison. His family thought they were getting rid of the dreamer, but God was positioning the deliverer. What looked like the end was actually the setup for the greatest comeback story in Scripture. That's your story, baby. That's your testimony brewing. And just like Joseph, while they were celebrating your absence, heaven was preparing your presence. While they thought they silenced your voice, the Most High was amplifying your authority. While they believed they diminished your influence, the universe was expanding your impact. Now the board is flipped, and their mask is melting. You see it now, don't you? How they scramble when you walk in the room, how their energy shifts when your name comes up, how their confidence crumbles when they realize you're not the same person they thought they destroyed. Because the chess piece they thought they captured just revealed itself as the queen who's been controlling the entire game. That job they blocked you from, it led you to your calling. That relationship they sabotaged, It freed you for your destiny. That dream they mocked, it's manifesting right before their eyes. Every door they slammed became a detour toward your divine assignment. And the beautiful thing about Checkmate, beloved, is that it's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's just inevitable, silent, certain, final. You don't have to announce your victory. You don't have to explain your elevation. You don't have to defend your transformation. When a queen moves into position, the whole board knows. When destiny aligns, the entire atmosphere shifts. When the chosen one steps into their power, even the air changes frequency. They thought you were out of moves. They didn't see that you were the move. David understood this, anointed as a boy, but still tending sheep while his brothers went to war. Still being overlooked while giants mocked God's army. But when the moment came when the kingdom needed a deliverer, the shepherd boy stepped forward with nothing but a sling and a stone. Not because he was the biggest or the strongest, but because he knew who he served. Because he understood that the game was never about size or strength. It was about alignment. It was about assignment. It was about being exactly who God called you to be when the world needed it most. That's you, warrior. You've been in the wilderness, but you were never lost. You've been in the valley, but you were never defeated. You've been in the shadows, but you were never forgotten. You were being prepared, positioned, purified for this moment. And this moment, this is your checkmate. Not revenge restoration, not retaliation revelation, not payback purpose. Because what they meant for evil, God intended for good. What they designed for your destruction became the foundation for your construction. What they orchestrated for your downfall became the launching pad for your uprising. So when they ask how you did it, how you survived, what should have destroyed you, how you thrived in places that should have suffocated you, how you found peace in the middle of their chaos, you tell them the truth. You tell them that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing. Sometimes the greatest victory looks like surrender. Sometimes the final move is played in silence. You were never the victim of their game, beloved. You were the prophecy playing out exactly as heaven wrote it. If you ever felt underestimated, sidelined, ignored, this is your moment. You were never the piece. You were the prophecy. And prophecies don't just come true. They reshape everything that thought it could stand against them. They rewrite the rules. They flip the script. They turn chessboards into altars, and pawns into queens, and spectators into witnesses of the impossible made manifest. Your eyes have seen it. Your spirit has felt it. Your soul knows it's true. The game they thought they were winning, you already won it. The moves they thought they controlled, heaven been orchestrating every single one. The checkmate they never saw coming, baby, it's already here. And the most beautiful part, this is just the beginning. You know what they can't stand about you now? It ain't that you're loud. It ain't that you're bitter. It ain't even that you're angry. What's eating them alive is that you stopped needing to be heard by people who were never really listening. You found your voice by losing the need to use it on them. And honey, that's silence. It's speaking fluent truth in a language they never learned. They used to feed off your explanations. Remember that? How they'd poke and prod until you spilled your heart all over their indifference. How they'd watch you bleed your truth just to hand you back doubt wrapped in fake concern. Are you sure that's what happened? Maybe you're being too sensitive. You might be overthinking this. But something shifted in you. Something ancient awakened. Like Elijah in that cave. You stopped looking for God in the earthquake of their chaos and the fire of their manipulation. You found him in the still, small voice that whispered, "Stop casting your pearls before swine." And baby, when you finally heard that whisper, you became dangerous. You're not arguing anymore. You're glowing. See, they thought your silence was surrender. They celebrated when you stopped defending yourself, thinking they'd finally worn you down. They threw their little victory parties, thinking they'd silence the one voice that made their lies sound like static. But what they didn't understand is that your silence wasn't defeat, it was a declaration. You weren't giving up, you were giving in to something higher, something they couldn't touch. Now they're looking at you sideways, trying to decode this new energy you carry, this stillness that feels like storm clouds gathering, this peace that cuts deeper than any sword you ever swung in their direction. Because your silence ain't empty, beloved. It's pregnant with power they can't comprehend. You're not proving anymore. You're positioned. They used to make you dance for crumbs of validation. Made you perform your pain like some twisted audition for their approval. Had you explained your existence to people who already decided you were guilty before you ever opened your mouth. But now you've stepped off their stage. You've left their courtroom. You've walked out of their kangaroo trial and into your own divine tribunal. And the verdict? Not guilty. Never was guilty. The only crime you committed was believing their lies about yourself long enough to almost lose yourself in their version of your story. But God, oh, but God saw what they did in the dark. He heard every whisper they thought was private. He felt every knife they thought they twisted in secret. And just like Joseph's brothers, they're about to discover that what they meant for evil, the Almighty has been working for your good this whole time. Your silence is now their sentence. And your silence? It's screaming through every lie they tried to spread. Listen to me, chosen one. Every word they twisted is being untwisted by your truth lived in silence. Every story they spun is unraveling in the face of your authentic living. They can't compete with the sermon your life has become. They can't argue with the testimony your transformation is writing in real time. You remember how David just kept tending sheep while Saul threw spears, how he kept playing his harp while hell tried to orchestrate his destruction. That's you now, tending your own garden while they're out there trying to convince the world your roses are weeds. But roses don't argue with thorns about beauty, they just bloom. And honey, you are blooming in a language they never learned to speak, the language of healed hurt, the dialect of transformed pain, the tongue of someone who found their voice by learning when not to use it. They're panic scrolling your social media, looking for cracks in your peace, analyzing your posts for signs of breakdown, studying your face in group photos for evidence of bitterness. But all they see is light where they expected shadow. All they hear is silence where they expected screaming. All they feel is your absence where they expected your anger. The loudest sound in their world right now is your absence. Because see, when you were fighting them, you were feeding them. When you were explaining yourself, you were entertaining them. When you were defending your truth, you were giving them front row seats to your pain. But when you walked away, when you chose silence over circus, when you picked peace over performance, you took away their favorite show. Now they're sitting in empty theaters, replaying old episodes of your pain, wondering why the reruns don't hit the same, wondering why their lies sound so loud in the silence you left behind, wondering why their victory feels so much like defeat when there's no one left to defeat. That's the power of divine detachment, beloved. That's what happens when you stop fighting flesh and blood and start wrestling with principalities in heavenly places. That's what it looks like when you trade your sword for stillness and discover that stillness cuts deeper than any blade ever could. Your peace is not passive, it's prophetic. Your calm is not weak, it's warfare. Your silence is not empty, it's echo chamber where all their lies go to die. They thought they broke your voice. Instead, they broke their own credibility. They thought they silenced your truth. Instead, they amplified it by proving it with their own behavior. They thought they won the argument. Instead, they lost the war by showing the world exactly who they are when they think no one's watching. But you were watching, God was watching, and now the whole universe is watching them unravel in the silence they thought they created. If your silence became your sword, confirm it. You've turned peace into power. Because what they're finally realizing is that you didn't need their stage to shine. You didn't need their approval to rise. You didn't need their understanding to stand in your truth. You just needed them to move out of the way so the light could find you without obstruction. And now that light is so bright, they need sunglasses just to look in your direction. That silence is so loud, they can't hear their own thoughts. That peace is so powerful, it's disrupting their chaos from 3 states away. This is what it looks like when the chosen one stops explaining and starts existing. When they stop defending and start ascending. When they stop talking and start walking in the authority that was always theirs to claim. Your stillness speaks in tongues they can't translate. And that translation? It's driving them absolutely insane. Because the only language they understand is chaos. And you've learned to speak fluent peace. And peace, beloved, is the most violent thing you can bring to a war built on lies. The echo of your silence is about to become their loudest nightmare. You know what they whispered when they thought you couldn't hear? They'll never amount to nothing. Too broken, too damaged, too much baggage. They counted you out before you even stepped into the ring, didn't they? Saturday around tables you built, eating food you provided, planning your spiritual assassination like it was Sunday dinner conversation. But here's what they didn't know, chosen one. Here's what their small minds couldn't comprehend. You weren't just another person they could discard. You were a prophecy wrapped in flesh, a divine assignment disguised as a broken heart. They didn't just underestimate you, they tried to cancel your calling. They tried to abort a destiny that was conceived in the mind of God before time began. Like Jeremiah, they said you were too young, too inexperienced, too wounded to carry the word. Like David, they saw the shepherd boy and missed the king. Like Joseph, they threw you in a pit, not knowing they were positioning you for a palace. But baby, listen, the storm they triggered, That wasn't your destruction. That was your spiritual stage being set. Every betrayal was backdrop. Every rejection was rehearsal. Every moment they made you feel small was God making room for something massive to be born through your brokenness. They thought they were writing your obituary. Heaven was composing your overture. You feel that rumble in your chest when I say these words. That's not anxiety, baby. That's recognition. That's your spirit remembering what your mind forgot. You are the prophecy they tried to silence. See, they moved against you like you were just another casualty in their game. But what they activated was cosmic. What they triggered was divine intervention. They poked a sleeping giant, not knowing the giant was clothed in humility, wrapped in grace, but filled with the fire of the Most High. And now, now they see it. Now they feel it. Your very existence has become a divine judgment wrapped in mercy. Not revenge, beloved, revelation. You didn't have to lift a finger. You didn't have to curse their name or speak evil over their lives. All you had to do was survive. All you had to do was refuse to become what they said you were. All you had to do was rise. And you're rising? It's exposing every lie they told about you. Your healing is confronting every wound they inflicted. Your peace is prosecuting every war they waged against your spirit. Not through violence, through your very breath. Not through hatred, through your very heartbeat. They're looking at you now with different eyes, aren't they? Not the eyes of a predator sizing up prey. The eyes of someone who just realized they've been playing checkers with a chess master. They've been throwing stones at a mountain. They've been cursing what God has blessed. And that sound you hear, that rumbling in the spiritual realm, that's not thunder, baby. That's applause. That's heaven clapping for the underdog who became the overcomer. That's the cloud of witnesses, every ancestor who prayed for your breakthrough, every saint who sowed into your season cheering for the prophecy that refused to be silenced. But here's where it gets beautiful, chosen one. Here's where grace meets glory. You're not celebrating their downfall. You're witnessing your uprising. You're not watching their destruction. You're observing divine order being restored. Because when God vindicates, it's not about punishment, it's about positioning. It's not about payback, it's about purpose being fulfilled. They thought they buried you, but you can't bury a seed that was planted by the hand of God. They thought they silenced you, but how do you silence an echo that was spoken from eternity? They thought they broke you, but you can't break what was forged in the furnace of divine purpose. Your scars, they're not evidence of your weakness, they're proof of your warfare. Your silence, it wasn't a submission, it was a strategy. Your tears, they weren't defeated. They were the rain that watered the prophecy growing inside you. And now that prophecy is blooming, in full view, in their faces, in defiance of every word they spoke against you, in contradiction to every limit they tried to place on you, in complete opposition to every box they tried to squeeze you into. You are the living, breathing, walking contradiction to their narrative. You are the plot twist they never saw coming. You are the miracle that makes their mouth hang open and their explanations fall flat. This isn't a coincidence, beloved. This is cosmic correction. This isn't luck. This is the laws of the universe responding to the cry of the righteous. This isn't timing. This is a divine appointment meeting human endurance. When Job lost everything, his friends said he must have sinned. When Joseph was thrown in prison, they said he was done for. When David was running for his life, they said his kingdom was finished. But what looked like the end was actually the intermission. What looks like your comeback is actually your arrival. You were never coming back to where you were, baby. You were always headed to where you're going. The storm didn't set you back, it catapulted you forward. The betrayal didn't break you down, it broke you through. And now your existence is a sermon they can't refute. Your survival is a testimony they can't silence. Your triumph is a truth they can't twist. You are the prophecy that refused to die, the calling that wouldn't be canceled, the purpose that couldn't be perverted. So when you look in the mirror tonight, don't see the person they tried to make you believe you were. See the prophecy you've always been. See the chosen one who was selected before selection made sense. See the warrior who was commissioned for this exact battle. If you've ever looked back and said, "They should have left me alone," this is your confirmation. You were never the problem, beautiful soul. You were the prophecy. You know what they've been doing for years? Avoiding your gaze like you carry lightning in your pupils. Like one long look from you would crack their whole performance wide open. And baby, they were right. See, they trained themselves to look past you, through you, around you, anywhere but into you. Because they knew, deep in their guilty spirit, they canoe. Your eyes don't just see, they archive. Your stare don't just observe, it downloads their whole operation. You ever notice how liars can't hold eye contact? How manipulators suddenly find the floor fascinating when you lock eyes. That ain't respect, honey. That's recognition. They're looking at the walking record of every lie they told, every scheme they ran, every time they smiled in your face while plotting your downfall. Your silence was the scalpel. Your stare was the mirror. Remember Joseph? Thrown in that pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, forgotten in prison. But when Pharaoh's court finally looked into his eyes, they saw eternity looking back. They saw divine download. They saw a man who'd been through hell and came back with heaven's blueprint. That's you, chosen one. You didn't just survive, you became the living testimony. You didn't confront them with words. You didn't need to. The spirit in your eyes did all the talking. Every time they caught you watching, every time they felt that holy pressure when you entered the room that was God himself using your awareness as his courtroom. They called you paranoid when you started seeing patterns. They labeled you too deep when you connected dots they thought they'd scattered. But paranoia is just prophecy in work clothes. And honey, you were prophesying their collapse with every knowing glance. Your eyes became the evidence they couldn't delete, the witness they couldn't silence, the truth they couldn't spin. Now watch this. Every family gathering, every workplace meeting, every social circle they try to control your presence shifts the entire atmosphere. Not because you say anything, because you see everything. And they know you see it. That nervous laughter when you walk in, that's guilt attempting small talk. That fake energy they throw your way, that's fear dressed up as friendliness. That way they suddenly change the subject when you're listening. That's their conscious mind protecting their unconscious crimes. You've become the human lie detector they can't reprogram, the spiritual security system they can't hack, the divine surveillance they can't escape. When the chosen one stops blinking, the liars start shaking. See, they thought if they could just outlast your attention, outmaneuver your awareness, you'd eventually look away, give up, move on. But what they didn't calculate was this: God don't blink. And when he downloads his discernment through your eyes, baby, that gaze becomes eternal. David knew this feeling. Hunted by Saul, betrayed by friends, misunderstood by family. But the Psalms tell us God's eyes were upon him. And through David's eyes, God was watching his enemies dig their own graves. You ain't holding grudges, beloved. You're holding revelation. And revelation always demands collapse. They avoid your eyes now because they see Judgment Day looking back at them. Not the angry kind, the K-knowing kind. The kind that says, I see who you really are, and I ain't afraid anymore. Your gaze has become their conscience they can't silence, their mirror they can't break, their reckoning they can't postpone. Every time they try to rewrite history, your eyes remind them of the truth. Every time they play victim, your stare exposes the real criminal. Every time they attempt their old manipulation, your awareness cuts through it like light through darkness. You are the archive they can't delete, the witness they can't discredit, the memory they can't erase. If you've ever walked in a room and watched someone avoid your eyes, like they saw judgment burning behind them, if you felt that spiritual weight when you know if your presence alone has ever made guilty people stutter and stumble, type it in your soul: my eyes remember everything. Because honey, when God gives you the gift of sight, it ain't just for seeing, it's for revealing. And what's about to be revealed through your eyes is going to shake foundations they thought were permanent. The mirror has eyes now, and they're yours. Chosen one, what you've been through, every betrayal, every manipulation, every silent tear you cried in the dark, it wasn't random, it wasn't punishment, it was preparation. You weren't being broken down, you were being broken open, so the light could get in, so the truth could get out, so your eyes could become the very thing they feared most: windows to divine justice. And now they look at you and see something that makes their spirit tremble. Not anger, authority, not bitterness, truth, not revenge, revelation. Your eyes carry the weight of everything they tried to hide. And honey, that weight is crushing them from the inside out. You tried to warn them with your words. They laughed. You tried to reach them with your love. They used it against you. You tried to reason with them through logic. They twisted it into lies. But now you speak in a language they can't manipulate, the language of spiritual sight. And that language is fluent in exposure. See, they thought they could gaslight you into forgetting what you witnessed. They thought they could manipulate you into doubting what you knew. But God has a funny way of turning tables. What they meant for your confusion became your clarity. What they intended for your destruction became your construction. What they hoped would blind you sharpened your vision. There's no going back now. No reconciliation with people who declared war on your peace. No apologies that could undo the spiritual damage they tried to inflict. The door is closed. The chapter is finished. The season is over. Romans 12:19 reminds us, "Vengeance is mine, I will repay," says the Lord. And honey, the repayment isn't coming through your hands, it's flowing through your ears. Every time they see you now, they see their own judgment. Not because you're judging them, but because truth is. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn." Did you catch that? You shall condemn. Not with your words, but with your witness. Not with your voice, but with your vision. Your very existence has become their condemnation. They thought your silence was surrender, but your silence was the calm before the storm. They thought your stillness was weakness, but your stillness was the peace before the power. They thought your eyes were just watching, but your eyes were recording, remembering, revealing. And now, every lie they told is echoing back to them. Every manipulation is mirroring back on them. Every scheme is circling back to them. Because when you mess with someone who's covered by divine protection, the coverage doesn't just shield you, it reflects back everything they threw. Your eyes have become the spiritual surveillance system they can't escape, the holy monitoring they can't delete, the divine documentation they can't destroy. So let me tell you who you really are. You are the one who survived what was meant to destroy you. You are the one who remembered what they hoped you'd forget. You are the one whose silence became louder than their lies. You are the one whose peace became more powerful than their chaos. You are not just chosen, you are proven. You are not just blessed, you are battle-tested. You are not just loved, you are protected by forces they'll never understand. Say this with me out loud, or in your spirit, let it settle in your soul like prophecy. My eyes have seen, my spirit remembers. My silence speaks, and my peace is my power. If this word has stirred something in your spirit, if you felt this truth in your bones, don't keep it to yourself. Share this message with another chosen one who needs to remember their power. Because when we rise together, we remind each other that we were never alone. Like this video, if your eyes have become the mirror they can't face. Subscribe if you're ready to walk in the authority they tried to steal from you. And to those of you who support this ministry through Super Thanks, you're not just giving money. You're sowing seeds into messages that heal souls. You're investing in voices that speak to the voiceless. Whether you give or not, your presence here matters. Your healing matters. Your story matters. Remember this, they avoided your gaze because they saw eternity looking back. They feared your silence because it carried the sound of divine justice. They panicked at your peace because it exposed their chaos. The mirror has eyes now, and they're watching everything, not just reflections but motives, not just faces but spirits. The veil is gone. The illusions have shattered. What once looked polished on the outside is now exposed on the inside. The mirror isn't showing you what you want to see anymore. It's showing you what's true. It's revealing who's pretending, who's hiding behind charm, who's smiling with a blade behind their back. The mirror sees through the performance, through manipulation, through the fake support and silent envy. But it also sees you clearly. Your growth, your healing, your silent strength, your inner battles nobody clapped for.